Welcome to Drenda on Guard, where we declare a war on sadness each week and discuss the real world issues affecting your life. Let's get into it. I have a few questions you've sent in to me. These are some tough ones. I'm going to answer those really quick today. I caught my teen sending and receiving nude pictures on her phone. How do I have conversations with her that this isn't okay? You know, every young woman is looking for love and acceptance. And unfortunately, because of the way our culture has over-sexualized every single program, media, everywhere they turn, young people are seeing sexualized images, and they've been given the cues that to show their own body, to sexually text, whatever, to show these things is a way to get love, a way to get attention, a way to get acceptance. This is not a good way at all. And you need to have that conversation with your daughter. You need to let her know that you love her, first of all, and that you accept her, that you're there for her. Unconditional love is what we're all looking for. So you don't want to come down so hard, like making her feel like she's done the worst thing and that she can never recover from this. But you've got to draw the line, and you've got to let her know that anyone that wants a picture of her nude is not out to help her, but to hurt her, to harm her, and that's lust, not love. It's not going to end anywhere good, and that any guy that's expecting that of her, pulling that, or anyone else that's trying to get that from her is not really out to love her, to honor her, to respect her, to make her feel fulfilled. Instead, they're going to hurt her, and that lust always leads to brokenness, and this is not where she wants to be. And then I would encourage you, you've got to build a relationship with her, because this is something very serious, that somewhere, something in her value system is broken. I don't know if in your family you've held up pop stars or who or what, you've made it where it's acceptable, or someone in her life has done that. Somewhere she's getting influence that isn't good, and you've got to go back to who's influencing your daughter, who's speaking into her life. Rebuild the relationship with her that she can talk with you, and you're a parent. You give her boundaries, you give her love, and you give her a way of escape out of this. If it means leaving the school she's in, leaving wherever, whatever you have to do to save your daughter, her life is in, it's basically hanging in the balance. This is super serious, and so I encourage you to have the conversation and to build the relationship and to be a really part of her life. And I would also say social media, the boundaries there have got to be strong, because this is serious that she's doing this type of thing. So whatever's causing the influence, get to the root of it, deal with the root of it, but give her a lot of love, acceptance, forgiveness, and ultimately she needs a relationship with God. She needs a relationship with a father. I don't know where her view of herself has come from, her identity, her view of a father in her life. If she doesn't have a father, if father's not been there to give her identity, but girls get their identity from their father, their dad, and also from God. And so if she doesn't have a father in her life, she needs both, honestly. She needs a father. She needs to know God that loves her and has plans for her life and how to kind of navigate through those. But she also needs to know a father in her life, a male relationship in her life that's accepting and loving and wants to protect her. So many girls do not have that today. I encourage you, though, Mom, have the conversation. Another one, my 14-year-old son has come to me about having suicidal thoughts. My wife and I have tried to be as loving and supportive toward him as possible, but we're still worried he might act on these thoughts. What should our next step be? Again, this is a fatherlessness issue where a young person doesn't know they're loved. They don't know they're accepted. They don't know there's forgiveness and there's a future for them. So a relationship with God is crucial. I was looking at some stats and some numbers, and the American Psychological Association said adolescents who attend religious services with one or both of their parents are more likely to feel greater well-being. So this is important to their well-being. For them they excel. The whole study shows how this impacts young people. People need to know, young people especially, need to know there's a God that loves them. They were created by a father. They're not a mistake. They're not an accident. They're not looking for their identity. Their identity is already secure in God. It's already been, God created them with purpose, with destiny, and an identity. And so many young people are looking for identity, which leads to suicide. It leads to suicidal thoughts. It leads to bouncing our identity off of so many areas, trying to find answers. Who am I? What purpose do I have? Am I a mistake? Am I weird, awkward? It's a hard time going through adolescence as it is, when their foundation's secure, when mom and dad are secure, when families are whole, when they even attend church, but much less in the culture that's so confused about identity and is pushing so many agendas on young people. There is a war on young people, and we need to teach them who they are, what they have in Christ, and what they can do in God. They need to know they have a creator and that there's a God that loves them. And they need security and boundaries at home, and they need to be pulled out of systems that are teaching them and training them and indoctrinating them into believing they don't have an identity. The next question, I'm a single mom raising a high school male, and lately I'm concerned about the friends he's hanging out with. How do I tell him to find new friends without him hating me? Friends are so crucial. You can do the right things at home, but the influences in a child's life, in a young person's life, will determine their destiny. It's so crucial who's speaking into their life. I've had parents say to me, well, I know we didn't train our child this way, or we didn't give them this confusion about their identity, or we didn't share this, we don't do this in our home, but someone in their life is influencing them, and you've got to ask, who are the influences? And friends that are wrong influences are serious, because we tend to, unfortunately, young people have been raised to look to their peers instead of to look to their parents. We've got to get back to parenting, folks. We've got to get back to giving kids boundaries and teaching and sharing with them how to navigate through life, who they are, and giving them security at home. This all comes back to family. It comes back to fatherlessness. And so helping your young person realize, I know my mom pulled me aside as a young girl. I brought a girl home to spend the night, and she wasn't a good influence. My mom was gentle in guiding me that this would not be a good friend for my life. My mom stayed with us, by the way, when she spent the night all the time, because she knew this was not a good influence. And later she told me, this is not a friend that you need to have as a good friend in your life. This person is going to do this and this. And you know what? I was hurt with my mom at first, but the following week I went to the ice skating rink, and there was that friend, and she was high and she was messed up, and she used harsh words with me. And I went away wiser, smarter for it, with a few tears, but my mom was right. So mom, be a mom and have that conversation with your young person. And even if they dislike you for the moment, you're not called to be their friend, you're called to be their parent. Thank you for sending in those questions. And if you have any questions you'd like me to answer here on Guard, please comment down below. If you've been watching us here on Guard, you've probably heard me talk about the war on sadness. Well, today we're going to be discussing how that war is specifically affecting your children and the next generation, and what you can do to stop it. Joining me today to help make sense of what's going on is Nurse Natalie. So Natalie, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
And I appreciate that you're a nurse and you read behavioral charts all the time. You and I were having a conversation about what you see in these charts of young people. Tell me a little bit about that, some of the disturbing things that you're seeing in this war on children.
What I have noticed is, first of all, I had never really realized, I would always take it as something of medical, because that's what I was raised with through nursing school. But after coming to the church and being able to gain that wisdom, I was able to read my charts differently. And through that process, I have been able to see there's common things that happen. It's broken homes, just like you had spoken about
these
before.
Kids are facing depression, and I have stats here. 3 million young people, 12 to 17, 3 million in 2020 had serious thoughts of suicide. So we've got 3 million kids with serious thoughts of suicide, and 18 to 25, we have 3.8 million. So we're talking about almost 7 million young people who are battling depression and thoughts of suicide. 1 in 6 have major depression. 1 in 3 have mental illness among 18 to 25-year-olds.
Yes.
This is, we don't want to talk about an epidemic,
right.
a pandemic. This is the real issue going
Yes.
on in people's lives. So what did you start to see in these charts, and what are you seeing with these young people?
As a mom, we are given these children, and what our role is we are to bring them back to Him, and He trusts us with that. And what I've realized is reading these charts, these children are sad, they're being lied to, they don't have somebody to help them feel that. They're looking for answers, but what they're looking for answers, they're getting the same thing of society from the people that they approach, people at school, it could be their classmates, and the moms are broken. And so what happens is you are having generations that this is coming through that they don't know how to find their way back. And so they're doing the best they can with what they have. And unfortunately, that has been lost to get back to God along the way.
Right. Well, we're spirit, soul, and body.
Correct.
And so what's happening is people don't know how to handle the spirit realm.
Yeah.
And so they just look at the mind, will, and emotions and try to deal in that area. And also there are people who are out to make money off of these problems and situations with young people. So what are some of the things you see in their charts, and what are they struggling with? What do you see young people as you're working in this atmosphere of working with kids, reading charts and behavior? What are you seeing behaviors?
The enemy's voice is getting stronger for these children. They don't realize God is always talking to us, but they don't know to listen to that. They don't know his voice. They're listening to the enemy, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. Lies are happening. Things such as food could be considered to be poison, things that you need nutrition-wise. So it's sad to see this because they're looking for answers, and all society wants to do is to tell them a diagnosis and put another diagnosis and another diagnosis.
And some of the conclusions they're coming up with are kind of crazy.
Yes.
You told me on the charts that it's very, very common on the charts for them to say they saw a dark, a personality, or a cloud.
What happens is that they see these and they're diagnosed with hallucinations. Could be auditory when they hear voices. It could be visual hallucinations, and that's what's documented. And that's how it goes, that they're saying that that's what happens. And so they medicate them for it. But the problem is it keeps coming back and it keeps coming back.
And worse.
And when they do it, then, you were talking about suicide. And that is something that these kids are looking for their worth and their identity. And I completely agree with that. And they're told, they set them up with counseling, and it could be at an outside facility. But I don't know what happens at those outside facilities. But I'm guessing that there's not a lot of spiritual that goes on and builds that. So it kind of goes through the process of just being this medical, which isn't going to fix it. Right. And they keep coming back, and you see this repeated in charts.
Tell me some of the stories that you've seen. That I know these are shocking for us to hear, but we need to know Satan has been operating behind the scenes in this area. We need to expose it and be on guard.
Kids nowadays, they do have, when they come in, it's very sad because, you would think at that point that they would be offered all resources of the hospital. We do have a pastoral team, but they're not coming in to say, you know what, you are healed. You're coming from a place of victory. You're not having to achieve that. That you were born a boy or you were born a girl, and telling them to kind of get rid of those lies, or talking to them about the hallucinations that they're, having, auditory or visual. They're not offering those services, and I think that would be something that would be helpful, because when these kids come in, they're frightened. They come in and there's things in the middle of, in the corners of the rooms, and they think, okay, there's not, but to them it really is, and it is there. They just can't see
spiritual.
it.
It's spiritual. So they're saying, you shared with me on charts, they say things like, I see a dark cloud, I see somebody hiding in the corner, there's a voice talking to me, and they almost always say they see a darkness.
Yes.
And then the answers they're given, there's no spiritual light there, there's no answer spiritually, so then they're just either medicated or told they're in the wrong body or form, and that making the changes. Can you, without obviously revealing any names, can you tell me some of the scenarios of kids and what you've seen?
What happens is a lot of them will say that the shadow hands come for them, that nightmares happen at night, they can't sleep. A lot of them have sleep disturbances because, you think everything else has been quieted around the hospital. They're trying to fall asleep and the enemy's voice just gets louder. One reported of hearing a clock ticking constantly, and so these situations that are happening, the parents are just like, you do see the mom saying, just help them, because at this point the mom doesn't know. And you can also notice that it's generational. The parents have these issues as well, and you can see it that the dad or the dad's in prison, these things have happened. There's sexual abuse, and they blame it on those kind of things. Post-traumatic stress disorder, they'll say, well, they have that, and that's why they have this.
And those can be open doors.
Correct.
Obviously, just like what I was talking about earlier, when someone engages in sex and they're kids, they're young, they're opening doors because there's a spiritual thing that happens in sex that people don't talk about. The Bible talks about it. The two become one. And so when you become one with someone, whether they sexually abused you, or whether it's, consensual and, two kids or two adults or whatever, there is a oneness, a bonding that happens, and what is of that person's spirit comes into you. And so you become one with that. And so when kids are doing this, or someone abuses them without spiritual intervention, without prayer, without breaking these demonic this demonic activity, that's what this is in their life, those kids are going to see and hear, they're going to be tormented, they're going to hear voices, they're going to, and you've told me that you have kids that are in these situations, they're binding their breast.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes, when kids are trying to go through that transition, and one thing that I think is, like you were saying, they're looking for answers. And so if they're coming into a healthcare facility and they're looking for those answers, and they're seeing that the healthcare facility is promoting these changes, they're going to be more likely to accept those changes as a norm, things that they're supposed to do. And instead of someone telling them, you know, you don't have to do this to find your identity. But there was a time where we were taught about, because girls were wanting to suppress their breasts, so they were wrapping with tape. And then gentlemen were wrapping with their penis to tie it to like their leg and things with tape. So therefore they wouldn't be able to, you know, look like the gender that they were given.
So they're coming in broken, they're coming in hurt, they're suicidal, and the answer is, and there's even a clinic for this area to push those kids to transition. And then they start to tape their breasts, tape their penis, tape their organs to no longer identify as that area, that male or female, that their biological parts show that they are.
And then they have to come in, and then we treat those areas. You know, I used to be in a different department, and we had this instruction on it because we had to teach, because first of all, we had to learn why they were coming in with these tape marks, because, you know, it was an unusual placing. And it was probably about 3 years ago when we started seeing this. And that's what had happened, was when we first started seeing it in the patients, they had to educate us on that because it wasn't something that was normally happening. You know, you wouldn't see wounds in those types of areas with that type of tape.
Because the tape creates wounds.
And they would have skin breakdown, and then we would have to have that treated.
So when that tape is pulled off or stays there too long, it creates infections and wounds, and then the skin rips off, and this becomes a wound. So you as nurses, as leaders, you have to look at what's going on with these kids and treat these things. And these kids, where are they getting these messages to tape themselves like this?
Well, I think a lot has to do, I learned with TikTok and things like that, because what I also noticed is that a lot of those bigger, mostly TikTok, I'm not familiar with it, I don't do TikTok, but a lot of them will have videos, and a lot of times too when they do...
Showing them how to do these things.
Well, they'll have for
Moms, dads,
suicide.
wake up.
Yeah, suicide, they'll have the packs, you know, they'll say, try this, and they're suicide challenges, and a lot of them will say that they do it as a group, you know, you'll see in the chart and things like that. So.
Tell me what a suicide challenge looks like. What is this?
It's just, they were something that they were saying that it's something they put on TikTok, maybe some kid has spoke about it, and then there may be a group of kids at school that say, okay, let's go home and try this challenge. Now some won't do it, and then some will, and obviously the ones that try will come in, and then that's how, you know, sometimes those situations happen.
Their parents aren't parenting,
No.
TikTok's parenting, media's parenting. Sounds like hospitals are parenting.
Yes.
And the school systems, the educational systems are parenting. These seeds are being planted. Influences.
Yes.
How important are the influences? And what do you see parents doing? If there's a young person in your life you know who's battling some of the issues we talked about today, or maybe it's you, I encourage you to download my audio message, Lost Generation, Recapturing Innocence. In Lost Generation, I go in depth about how to return to the values that made our lives and families prosper by offering practical tips and encouragement to help you cast down cultural strongholds and bring your family into a closer relationship with God. That's the answer. To download Lost Generation or find out more information, click the link in the description below. And remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. And join us again next week as I continue my conversation with Nurse Natalie and our ongoing discussion on the war on children. Until then, stay on guard.